Hello, everybody. This is Dr. Hamid Elamir. I am the host of podcast with Dr. E. At this podcast, I sit with the world's experts in health, education, and community development and public health to talk about current health challenges and ask them to share their experience, knowledge, and insight with all nations across the world so that we can learn from experts across the globe. Today, I have an amazing guest with us on the show. She is a great pediatrician and functional health expert. Dr. Hokehe Efyung is with us today. Welcome, Dr. Hokehe.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hamid. It's great, a pleasure to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you on the show. Dr. Hokehe Efyung, board certified pediatrician, certified brain health, ADHD consultant, helps parents of children diagnosed with ADHD who are frustrated and worried about their child's behavior and are ready to partner with their child to get to the root cause of the behaviors, to heal and flourish in mind and body using brain health strategies and functional medicine. She is the CEO of ADHD Practical Solutions with a mission to help 1 million children with ADHD accomplish their big dreams. She is also the CEO of Kids of Hope, a 501c3 organization dedicated to inspiring communities to share love, hope, and dignity with children in the foster care system. After being injured in two car accidents, labeled as average, and told it was impossible for her to fulfill her dream of becoming a pediatrician, she uses her experience with developing resilience and thriving in the face of obstacles to help children diagnosed with ADHD and children in foster care see themselves as who they are, as who they truly are, fiercely courageous and capable of fulfilling their dreams. She has spoken to the United Nations Youth Program, Ghana, on the effects of adverse childhood experiences and has been on multiple podcasts and summits such as the Healthy, Fit, and Uplifted webinar as keynote speaker. Dr. Doctors Unbound, the on air advocate, motherhood, millennia, and motherhood. She has also hosted a summit for foster parents. She is on the board of directors for the American Academy of Pediatrics, Oklahoma chapter. Again, it's a pleasure to have you on the show, Dr. Hokehe.
Thank you so much. My pleasure.
Well, Dr. Hokehe, as you are, involved in not only medicine but functional medicine, but also you're looking for the root causes of diseases, and having your own nonprofit. This discussion is going to be very interesting and very useful for our audience, and I'm sure that this would inspire a lot of people, especially the healthcare practitioners, to think outside of the box and look for ways to help their patients, not only their patients but also their families, their communities, the patients' communities, and the world, because we are made to impact millions of people, not only just the private practice or the hospital. And I believe you agree with that.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, I mean, I didn't used to, but over time, I have realized that yes, our purpose and our mission is to reach each child, and not just the child, but the families at large. So a lot of my practice now is spent talking to the parents because I realize if I can get to the
Right.
parents, and the child will be taken
Abs-
care of, and then it keeps spreading and ripple effects
Absolutely.
is unknown, but
Yeah.
definitely
Well,
amazing. So.
yeah, exactly. So I'm glad we are on the same page. And with that, let me start this personal question. Why do you do what you do? And perhaps you can explain more about your passion and your why.
Right. So, like Simon Sinek says, begin with your why, right? Because
Right.
that's what drives everything you do. So, my bio alluded to the car accidents I experienced and what I was told by the neuropsychologist telling me be I couldn't become a pediatrician, even though that's what I've wanted to be since I was 5 years old. And so I'm not saying that the road ahead was easy, but with consistency and believing in my dream, I made it. I mean,
Right.
I had so many obstacles along the way, but I just kept pushing through. And so I discovered that there was actually nothing I couldn't do if I put my mind to it. And over the last year and a half, I I came in contact with more children with that are in the foster care system and more children who have ADHD. And I started to learn about adverse childhood experiences, which is something that there was a study done in the 90s, but it's only recently that that information has started to come mainstream, where we're learning more about how actual things like living in a home with a parent who has been on drugs and experiencing the death of a loved one and parents going to jail, all of that makes physical changes in the child's brain. And then you start showing, they start exhibiting behaviors that could potentially mimic the symptoms of ADHD, of hyperactivity and inattention. And so when I learned that, a light bulb went on in my head, like, wait, hold on. And all of this time we have been trained to just, okay, your child is hyperactive, not focused in school. Here's a Vanderbilt, fill it out. Let's talk about stimulants. And we don't really look at what's really going on with the child, or the parents, not or, and the parents, and the environment at home that could be doing this. And so when I learned about that, my whole practice changed, and I was I can no longer go back to just say, hey, hi, here's the Vanderbilt and your meds. Now I will spend time talking about the different things going on, because there's so many, and that's what pushes me every day. And with the foster care piece, I came across foster kids that, I mean, we're taking from their homes little to nothing, and I know that that creates trauma for the child, and then they start exhibiting behaviors like not being focused, inattentiveness. And so it's like the whole thing ties together. And I was like, wow, there's so many kids, millions of kids whose lives could be changed if we just addressed what's really going on with them. And so that's my why, and that's what pushes me, because I understand what it's like to be labeled and told you can't do something. Which children with ADHD, that label already tells them, your behavior is, I mean, you can't act right, you're not doing the right thing. um Foster children, that label says, oh my goodness, you're a ward of the state, you can't reach your highest potential. And so it's so limiting. And so that's what drives me, knowing that if children and the parents are aware that there's more to your child than just this label we slap on them,
Right.
then they are limitless, really. So yeah.
Well, well, that's a very powerful message there, and your why, of course, is very, you know, your passion. I can see passion driven, and your dedication and that goal to look for the underlying cause. That's very important. And you know, being a pediatrician myself, I did that, you know, study, and then it would be repeated because I almost mention this in every show that I have with guests on the show with other physicians. Because if you know your why, then the road is clear. So you would go wholeheartedly and with passion, and you will have an impact on millions of people. And my why is pretty much similar to yours, and coming from the same background in pediatrics. Like when I was in medical school, so I always wanted to help people, and for that I said maybe I should just become a physician. And you becoming a physician, a general practitioner, you realize that no, you really need to be a little more focused and specialized in something so that you can be more helpful. So I did residence in pediatrics, and coming from a pediatric residency, underserved communities there, unfortunately, a lot of these kids who were coming to that hospital, same thing, they were suffering from really easily preventable diseases such as diarrhea or bronchiolitis. And a lot of them, unfortunately, by the time they got to the hospital, were in critical conditions, irreversible shock, and you know, all other complications of just a diarrhea and dehydration and heart failure, renal failure, and all that. So I was looking for the underlying causes too, for the root causes to find solutions so that people shouldn't get sick in the first place. Then I pursued my master's in public health and focused on community health education. And I think all of us as health practitioners, regardless of the specialty, have another mission and responsibility, not only to write prescriptions, but also to educate people. I mean, at least raise awareness.
Mhm.
The word educate itself is a very strong word. I don't use it more often because people know it. They just need reminders.
Right.
And we need to be more cautious of raising awareness about that. Thank you so much for sharing your why. Um, so please, I also mentioned in your bio that you also use, brain, you use some strategies to about brain health. Could you please elaborate a little more about brain health strategies that you use for uh,
Okay.
patients?
Okay. Yes. So I discovered, because I was injured, I gravitated once I saw this course this year about brain health coaching for clinicians, and so I was like, oh, I gotta do that because of course I've had the experience with the traumatic brain injury. So I going through that, I discovered that a lot of us forget about the physical health of our brains. We talk about mindset, think positive, we say eat right, we say sleep, but we don't really tie it to why we need to do that or how it affects the physical health of our brain, which is our major driver. And so I discovered, oh my goodness, when I talk to my patients now and the parents, I teach them from that direction, saying, hey, what drives you? Okay, it's your brain. So do you know you need to fall in love with your brain? And if you're gonna put something in your mouth, you have to ask yourself, would your brain like that or not? And then their eyes just get wide and it's like, oh wait, yeah, I actually am in control of taking care of my own brain. And that's empowering for kids because they want to be in control of something because they feel a lot of times that they are not powerful enough. So teaching them that falling in love with their brains means that they have to exercise because their brain needs the oxygen for it to keep working. That if they drink, they have to drink enough water because your brain is 80% water. So your brain needs water to really function well. That there are foods that you need to eat to boost your brain power, like eating blueberries. Like I had lots of antioxidants and just going through things like that. Um, Decreasing the processed foods, increasing the fresh fruits and the fresh vegetables, and sleep, and why your brain needs time to sleep. Because if your brain sleeps enough, then your brain will function better because that's how it works. And so just going at it from that angle of, hey, we need to get your physical brain working well, and then you can manage the thoughts that come, and then you can focus better in class. And so that's the way I teach it to my patients now. And it's amazing the changes that are happening. So yeah.
Right. That great. That's very interesting. That you brought up the idea of when we think about brain and it's just the keeping yourself happy or whatever other more abstract things, but not the physical part of it. And that was really an eye opening to myself as well. And I'm sure that it is eye opening for a lot of your audience and your clients and patients. So, what is the importance of functional medicine in treating ADHD or in pediatrics in general?
Well, with functional medicine, it's basically the looking at root causes of why of what's causing the symptoms, or in terms of ADHD, the behaviors.
Right.
So typically, like I've said before, we are just trained to look at, okay, this is a symptom. Your child is hyperactive. So we have a medication for that. We don't look beyond that. So there are multiple causes of ADHD that have been found. So ADHD is primarily heritable, meaning genetics plays a big part. But your environment can affect the child in such a way that they will exhibit symptoms. Like for example, exposure to lead, exposure to mold. I mean, I had a 12-year-old who came in with her mom, and she said oh, my daughter is hyperactive. Let's evaluate her for ADHD. And I said, okay. So I started asking questions. I asked, okay, what's going on in your home? Any mold in your home? And then mom just said, oh, by the way, every time an insect flies into our house, it falls dead and dies. I was like, hold on, what did you say? She said, yeah. And that the dog just seems so lethargic and the dog just lays on its side. I'm like, okay, that doesn't sound right. I think you need to check your home. So she's, of course, couldn't move out of her home right then because I was like, oh, please, can you just move out right now? But
All right.
what she did was send her child to go stay with somebody else. And over the next week, she came back to see me, and her child's symptoms of hyperactivity were gone
Mm.
just because she was out of that home environment. And can you imagine if I had just not even asked those questions? I would have stuck this child with some stimulants that will not treat anything, will not help her because the problem is her home.
Right.
So it's a matter of, it's a whole perspective change. Like, there's so much we can do with just asking more questions and knowing what to ask, first of all. And the other causes of ADHD can be nutritional deficiencies. I mean, I've seen children who are deficient in magnesium, and I put them on magnesium, and their symptoms decrease, and now they're more verbal. I have a girl, a patient with autism, who that's the case. She wasn't verbal, and I said, okay, mom, add some magnesium to her diet and take her off dairy because that could be inflaming her tummy. And now she's no longer constipated, and she's called her mom mama for the first time the other day. So it's amazing how just little things like that, just understanding that there are so many other causes and just looking for them, that you don't have to directly go to medication first. There's changes that you can make in the child and the parents' lives. So I
Mm.
could go on, but I stop there.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
it's very interesting. That personally myself, I didn't know much honestly about functional medicine until recently. And, just going to med school and doing that conventional medical school studies and textbooks, and then, just thinking about that and writing prescriptions and, seeing things through that
Lens, yeah.
lens is different when you see things that are, you know, in general, it's what we eat is affecting our health. What we think about, things around us really affects our health. Our interaction and actions that we take on a daily basis, every part of it is affecting our health, and that's why I always try to bring people from all walks of health around the same table to have that upstream and comprehensive approach to health, because as you just brought up the ideas of your experience with your patients and their kids with the ADHD, it's really amazing, and how it can change people's behavior, people's health. And of course, changing behavior is one of the challenging, probably the most challenging task, and to do that, and especially when it comes to kids and younger children, it's difficult because you have to convince them, you have to convince their parents, you have to make sure that you approach in a way that is more not something that is threatening for them, or something that is limiting their activities with their own circle of friends, but making sure that it's in a way that is helpful and useful and practical.
I
And thank you for sharing that. Definitely very, um, it's very instructive for I think not only for health practitioners but also for parents who are listening to this show. So with that, let me ask you a question about your 501c3, and that's Kids of Hope. Please tell us more about that. How did you start this? What was the motivation behind it? I know pretty much like we kind of indirectly heard about it, but please tell us about more about this organization.
Okay, so um, I started Kids of Hope last year, October 2019, after a few months of, I mean, I had done some extra training in child abuse because I'm a rural based pediatrician.
Mhm.
And so I became more aware of the children in foster care. Not that I didn't know they were there, but it was just brought to my attention more. So I started talking to the foster parents and just just talking with them more about their experiences and how the children are doing and all of that. And I kept hearing over and over that the children would come to their homes with really literally nothing but the clothes on their back. And if you know a child, which we're both pediatricians, mine is one of the first words the child says. So
Right.
if you've stripped away not only their entire world, which is their parents or whoever they're living with, and then none of their stuff comes with them, I mean, that's a whole nother layer of trauma for any child. So I kept hearing that over and over, and I thought, okay, I can do something about it. But I was like, I'm so busy. What can I possibly? I don't know how to run a nonprofit or do any. So I didn't do anything, anyways. And until I had this one patient, he was 4 years old. He had been in over 10 foster homes in less than 6 months, if you can believe that.
Oh,
So he came into my office bouncing off the walls and was and the workers that brought him said, we're here for you to diagnose him with ADHD and he needs some medication. So I was like, okay, let's talk about this. So um, the child kept coming up to me and saying, please hug me. He asked me at least 15 times in the 15 minutes I was there to please hug him. And I said, well, this doesn't sound like ADHD. This is a 4-year-old kid. Can we find him a home, a loving home where somebody would just love this child, please?
right.
And they kind of thought what was wrong. They thought I was weird. Like, why in the world are you not giving this kid medication? I'm like, let's try that first before we give a 4-year-old stimulants, please.
Okay.
And so we tried that, and they found him a home. And the next time I saw him in a couple of months, he came in with sitting on the laps of his foster dad, who's an amazing parent, and he was calling him Papa. And he only asked me to hug him once, and I was like, see, oh my goodness, where's the jumping up around the room gone? Like, what happened? So that was another thing that told me trauma, and I mean the symptoms of traumatic experiences for kids and symptoms of hyperactivity and inattention, and they are connected. Like that was like classic. Oh my goodness, like symptoms gone because now he's in a stable home and he's being loved.
Hmm.
So that pushed me, and I was like, okay, I got to do this thing that's been in my heart. So I just started. I put bags together. The way I started was putting bags together with all brand new items because I wanted the children to have a sense of dignity. So I put bags together with for babies, children, and teenagers with comfort and essential items. So things like blankets, books, teddy bears, toys, age appropriate things like that, and giving them to either Department of Health Services like the foster care agencies or like Department of Health Services. And so they would hand the bags to the children when they got pulled out from their home. So at least they have something that's theirs and not just hand me down. So I've done that over the last year, and it's amazing. We've done it in several communities in Oklahoma where I'm based. But recently, due to COVID and all of the supplies chains being limited and social distancing, we are pivoting to start to just fulfill dreams or wishes that foster children have. So we're going to be partnering directly with foster care agencies to get the wishes or dreams that foster care children have or children in foster care have, and then we'll fulfill them. So that way we want to we want them to know that dreams do come true and it is possible. And the other thing we're going to be working on is education for teens in the foster care system that are aging out. So the statistics are pretty bad. Over 60% of them are age out at age 18 from foster care, don't go to college, become homeless, or end up in jail because they've been bounced around so much. There's no stability. And so they don't learn the skills that they need to do well when they age out of the system. So I'm putting together education to to for that subset of children. Just things like, how do you open a bank account? How do you budget? How do you apply for college? Because it's possible for you to go to college if that's your dream. And how do you get your first apartment? I mean, things like just basic life skills that they
Right.
lack, just to help them out. So that's what Kids of Hope is working on right now.
Okay, that's a great mission, and thank you for everything that you do in thinking outside of the box and seeing health as a challenge, not only just that is limited to clinical settings, but also outside of clinical settings. What happens in people's lives, especially in in children's lives, that affects their health directly or indirectly.
Right.
And that's very helpful for the communities, especially that based on an earlier conversation that once I remember you and I had, the lack of pediatricians or healthcare practitioners in general in areas like Oklahoma and other places is something that um, strike me, and I think it's something that we need to pay more attention to when it comes to communities with underserved who are underserved and with low resource and lack of practitioners.
Right.
Each one of us, as I mentioned earlier, that we are made to impact millions of people, not just the private practice or the hospital we work with. But with that, I guess you are on that mission, and as also I read on your bio that you want to impact millions, at least a million people. I would say millions of people,
Yes.
and
Millions. Yes.
for that to happen, it's that little steps that you we take one at a time,
Right.
and especially with underserved communities and where there are not enough physicians and pediatricians. What you are doing is that you raise awareness, you educate people, and you empower the communities so that
Right.
they don't get sick in the first place. They get they know more about ADHD, the root causes, and that's a way of preventing that. So that is actually definitely impacting thousands and millions of people, and I really appreciate your work, and so glad that I had you on the show today.
Yes. My
And
pleasure.
yeah, please tell us a little more about how people can find you and to know more about your work and your practice and expertise.
Okay. So for Kids of Hope, we're at kidsofhope.org. That's KITS of hope, one word.org. And for the ADHD practice, it's at ADHDpracticalsolutions.com. And that's all one word. And for any parents who'd like to talk to me about their children, I offer a free clarity call with them just so we can talk about how we can help your child and you get better. So, yes.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hokahe, today for the show and for all the amazing job and work that you're doing in your community in Oklahoma, as well as around the world. It's been a pleasure to talk with you today.
Yes, same here. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And dear audience, for more shows and health challenges to be discussed with experts from across the United States, across the world, please stay tuned with Dr. E podcast. Thank you all and have a great day.